Welcome back to my channel, everybody. You may be wondering, Tease, why are we in this random weird corner of your house? First of all, this is a blank because this used to be the corner where we had all of our wedding stuff, but I finally organized that and put it away. So now there's just nothing there, which is kind of a really great feeling, but it does look kind of sad. Second of all, today is 108 degrees outside, so I do have my AC running, so I can't be out in like the living room where I normally am because y'all wouldn't hear me at all, and ain't no way in hell I'm turning that shit off. Also, it's really dark, right? Like, for being daytime, it's like extremely dark and kind of weird looking, kind of creepy. There is a huge wildfire by us, maybe 20 miles east. Our air quality's shit right now. It's orange outside, and so our whole house has like this orange tint to it. It's even worse in the living room because that's where like we have a direct window where the sun comes in, and it's just eerie. It's just a shitty, eerie, like apocalyptic vibe, and it sucks to think of how many people are getting displaced because of this, and it's just so fucking sad. So I've thought about, instead of sitting down and making like these long ass wrap up videos, I've thought about just doing like my last 5 reads kind of video. So like every time I read 5 books, I'll do a short, like 5-minute wrap up. And then after that, the next 5 reads, I'll do a short 5-minute wrap up. And that way they're more like fresh in my head as well, more relevant maybe. I'll maybe have more to say instead of like, I don't know, I kind of forgot. Like, you know, it'll be more relevant and they'll be quicker and shorter videos, which I think would be really nice for both of us, to be honest. So, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that. It is the middle of August, like I said. So this video is very late. So because of that, I do have my laptop here with my reviews just to kind of reference what star rating I gave things and whatnot, because I have forgotten, which is another reason that the last 5 read things would be nice, because I wouldn't have to like, you know, refer to things I said in the past. It's like it could just be fresh off the dome, you know. The first thing that I read, I'm going to scoot you over a little bit so I have room, because I feel like the picture always gets put on my fucking face. But the first thing that I read was Devil Dirty Mountain Men by Parker Gray. This is something that I randomly picked up on Stuff Your Kindle Day. I kind of went wild on Stuff Your Kindle Day and just downloaded anything that had a decent rating. But I downloaded a ton of stuff, which is great. Like, free books, are you kidding? Like, what a blessing. I did give this 2 stars. This is about a woman who, her car breaks down in the middle of a snowstorm. And these 2 gruff, like, National Forest Service workers pick her up and take her back to the cabin, and they have to stay in the cabin. Force proximity, babes. Your ears are perking up. They have to stay in the cabin until the snowstorm ends. It was the writing for me. Like, not only was like the dirty stuff like super repetitive, like every time that they would have sex, they were saying the same things, like the same dirty talk, like the same, they were kind of doing the same stuff, saying the same stuff. But even like if you take away the erotica, like, and all that's left is like the actual plot of the story, even that was repetitive. Like, even the things they were doing, the things they were saying, it was super repetitive. And so even for 100 pages, it felt like a 700-page book, because I was like dragging. It wasn't super good, but it was like entertaining enough, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a 1-star read. It was a fair 2-star read. Then I finally got around to A Universe of Wishes. This was the oldest ARC I have like ever had, ever. I got it on NetGalley, and back in like 2018. So this was sitting on my NetGalley shelf since 2018. I tried to read it on Kindle like NetGalley does, like an ebook, and I just couldn't get into it. It is an anthology. It's a diverse fantasy YA anthology, so definitely something that interests me. I do tend to not read a lot of YA anymore, but I love an anthology. So eventually it did come out on audio, so I did just pick that up. I did give it 3 stars. Now, I think my average actual rating, 3.13, and then on Goodreads, obviously, I rounded that down to a 3. For the majority, anthologies are 3 stars for me. Middle of the road, 50-50, liked some, you know, really didn't like some, like, middle of the road. Let's see, the ones that I gave 4 or higher would be A Universe of Wishes by Tara Sim, A Royal Affair by V.E. Schwab. So I've never read the Shades of Magic series, but that prequel, because you didn't need to read the series before reading the short story, like, it didn't weigh on you having read, like, it didn't depend on you having read it, you know, already, because it was a prequel and it was really, really well done. Now I'm so interested in the Darker Shades of Magic series or whatever, because that was amazing. I give that 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. The Coldest Spot in the Universe by Samira Ahmed. Longer Than the Threads of Time by Zoraida Cordova. And then Habibi by Tochi Anabuchi. Most of those are 4.5 if not 5 stars. They were amazing. But there were a lot of stories in here that I gave 1 star. And so that's what threw it off kilter, I think. I definitely do recommend it. Like I said, I think if you're into fantasy, if you're into, you know, they're all very diverse stories, which I can really appreciate and admire. Then I have The Midwinter Witch. I finally picked up Midwinter Witch, which completes the Witch Boy trilogy graphic novels. So I finished the series. I would like that in big bold letters, finished a series. Whoop, whoop, whoop. This one is 4 stars. I enjoyed it a lot, but it still was probably my least favorite in the series. But I think that goes to show how amazing I think this series is, if the 4 star is my least favorite one. So because it's the Witch Boy, this definitely is like autumnal vibes, like the series as a whole, I mean, autumnal vibes. Highly recommend reading during autumn, fall. But this one in particular, obviously, it's about like a winter, Christmassy kind of like event, and so it definitely has like the winter vibes, but still cozy as fuck. Like it's so cozy. So I did really enjoy this. Like I said, still 4 stars, still amazing, but probably my least favorite in the series. Next, I did read White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This I read for Summerween, so I will link I'll put a card in for my Summerween day 4 and 5 vlog. 2.5 stars, but I did round up to 3. This wasn't what I was expecting it to be. So this is marketed as like new wave, new age horror, and that's obviously what I expected, but at its core, this is a paranormal mystery. This isn't horror at all. You're not going to be scared reading this. I think that I would have liked this more had it been marketed correctly, so that my expectations going into it were different. When I take that out and I still look at it for what it is, it's still like not the best book I've ever read, but I can appreciate what it does in a lot of aspects. A lot of the plot kind of falls away from the main like mystery that's trying to be solved, and the main character, talks a lot about a friend that had passed away and her cousin's marriage. And I said in my review that had you taken out anything that talked about both of those, the friend's marriage or the cousin's marriage and the friend's death, since they didn't end up having a impact on the story at the end, and there was ultimately no need for them, had you taken them out, this would have been a sick novella. That goes to show how much of the book covers those 2 topics, because if you took them out, it would be a novella. But I think that it would have actually benefited the story in so many ways, because like I said, those 2 plot points, those 2 subplots, those 2 diversions, you know, they weren't relevant to the story in the end. And I kept hoping and waiting that they would come back around to mean something, but honestly, they didn't. But there were also a lot of aspects I liked in here. I did like the writing style. I think it was interesting. I'm definitely gonna, you know, see what else Erica T. Worth comes out with in the future. This is a debut novel, so I'm definitely going to keep an eye out on this author and see what else she puts out. This just wasn't what I expected it to be, which was kind of a disappointment, but always love reading diverse stories. This is an Indigenous author, own voices, Indigenous main character, talks a lot about history, culture, stuff like that. Learned a lot, always fascinated by things like that, so love to support that, but this didn't do what I thought that it would do in the end. Okay, next I have Cross Her Heart by Sarah Pinborough, which I also read for Summerween, and I also give 2.5 stars. This one I really liked the writing style, but I didn't like the plot. So like I liked the way it was written, but what was being said was not good. It did have me, you know, pretty interested in what was going to happen, but it also was relatively predictable by about the midway point. And then after that, it really just got super unrealistic. And not in like a fun, cool, like weird realistic way where you're like, ooh, that's so different and edgy, and like, no, it was just like, what the fuck? That didn't even make sense. I just wasn't a huge fan of this at all. Then I read Lights, which is the 3rd and final book in the Sheets trilogy. So I did have an arc of this. It is releasing September 5th of this year, and that will be the final one. So another series down, people. Another series down. Finish the series. Just like with Midwinter Witch, this was definitely my least favorite in the whole trilogy. It was nice finally getting Wendell's story, the ghost, from the very first one. He's also in the second one as well. He's a main character, I would argue, but we finally get kind of his story, which is really nice. It is super cozy, you know, Thanksgiving is in there, Christmas is in there. Like, it does have kind of those cozy vibes that you expect from a graphic novel like this. And it acted like a conclusion. That was something else I didn't like about Midwinter Witch, is it didn't really act like a conclusion. It was written that although there were going to be more, so you're left kind of, you know, it didn't wrap up nicely, whereas this one really did. It wrapped up, you could tell that this is the conclusion, you could tell there aren't going to be any more in the series, and, you know, it kind of left on like a good note, so I did really appreciate that. However, the reason that I really didn't like this is it was just far too long. Like, it was slow, it was long, there were a lot of things in there that didn't need to be, that didn't really add to the story in the way that I think maybe they intended to. And then the art style in this series has never been my favorite, but I've always loved the plot enough to want to continue. But as far as graphic novels go, it's just not my favorite. I'm happy to be done with it, happy to have said I read it. I definitely do love this series, and I would recommend them if you're into, you know, spooky, but like wholesome spooky kind of stuff. I definitely recommend it. The second book, I will say, a lot of trigger warnings in that one. It definitely covers a lot of deeper topics. So although this is a middle grade novel, I would definitely maybe read them first before having your kids read them, because that one gets fucking dark. So I did finish that. I gave it 3 stars, a solid 3. Then I picked up Cheshire Crossing, and I was so excited for this one because this is written by Andy Weir. His last name is so hard for me to say. From like The Martian, Project Hail Mary, but it's drawn and illustrated and colored and everything by Sarah Anderson, who did like Sarah's Scribbles and Cryptic Club and Fangs and so many amazing graphic novels. So it's like the collab we didn't know we needed ever. This was published as a book, I think like 3 years ago or something like that, but it was actually it actually originated as like a webtoon, like a webcomic on, I think, Tapas is where I read it. I don't know if that's exactly like where it started or not, but it is free on there still to this day, so you can pick this up whenever. This follows Alice, like from Alice in Wonderland, Wendy from Peter Pan, and Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. This wasn't bad by any means, but it was just a little all over the place and kind of like, I think because, so like when you go on Tapas to read it, so they made them for a while, and then they stopped for like 2 years, and then they continued with them again, and then they stopped for a long period of time. And so I think because of that, a lot of the story, it just doesn't feel like a cohesive piece of work. It's kind of just like randomly thrown together, and the story itself does still make sense. You can follow it. It is obviously like a linear plot line, but it's just like the ideas and stuff, it doesn't flow very well together, and I think that's because there was so much time in between all of the different chapters and whatnot. If you're into fairy tales or anything like that, I think you'll really enjoy this retelling, but I would have never guessed that it was from Andy Weir and Sarah Anderson. You know, like, it just doesn't feel as good as their works are individually, but obviously, like I said, this was kind of just thrown together, and it was made a really long time ago, so that could be why, but I did give it a 3-star, I believe. Yeah, I still enjoyed it a good amount. Then I read They Both Die at the End. I did read this for a vlog that I will have coming out soon. This, I think I gave 3.75, 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, but it just didn't impact me the way that I like thought that it would. I definitely anticipated, like, you know, really having like a stronger emotional impact with these characters and whatnot, but it just didn't land that way. I do still really like it. I highly recommend it, definitely. I love these characters so much. I always love Adam Silvera's characters. I think that's what he really thrives in. Still really good, but definitely not as good as I had higher hopes for me, but still really good and definitely would recommend it. Then I read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. Finally! I gave this 3 stars. I did not enjoy this as much as The Hate You Give. It was okay. I do think I gave it 3.5 actually on Storygraph, but I think I rounded down on Goodreads. I always love Angie Thomas. Like, her writing style is just fantastic. It was interesting. It was a fun read, definitely, with like the rap battles in it and whatnot, but it just it's not a standout, sadly, which is why I am very excited to get to Concrete Rose, because that is technically like a prequel to The Hate You Give, so I am excited to see how I feel about that one, and I'm really hoping that will be more of a standout than this one was. But like I said, not bad, but just not what I expected. And I randomly picked up The Crucible, which I've owned for maybe like a year or 2 now, and then randomly, literally, like the last weekend of August, I just was looking through my books and I was like, I'm gonna pick up The Crucible. I loved it. I gave it, I think, 4.5 stars. It's definitely one of my new favorite classics. I think there's a lot of deeper rooted commentary in here, and obviously because it's a Penguin Classic Edition, which is my favorite, you do get this whole introduction that was my receipt for buying it. You do get this like whole introduction that really dives into all of the deeper messages and kind of more of what, you know, Arthur Miller was really trying to like portray with this, because this book is obviously about the Salem witch trials. It is a play about the Salem witch trials of 1692, but it was written in 1954, and it's a commentary on like communism and the Red Scare and everything. So really, really interesting to view it from that perspective, and his decision to use the Salem witch trials like in comparison with that. It's just very, very interesting, especially when, if you do have this edition, and I highly recommend it, having kind of this introduction to help you understand the text a little bit more is why I love Penguin Classics. But I did enjoy this overall. I think that this was a interesting one, and I would highly recommend it. Lastly, I have the Hazelwood. I do have the dust jacket, but it's off right now because I have this in the like gray section of my shelves. I don't have rainbow shelves, but I do have like my books. A lot of them are turned around like this, and then I do have some random colors thrown in that are like neutral tones more so, that kind of go with like the theme of our like decor. So this one, because it's gray and there aren't a lot of gray books, I do have this with the gray stuff. I reread this so I could finally finish the series. I picked up The Boy Who Didn't Come Home, which is a little super short story, and as well, which I'll talk about a little bit in my August wrap up, or my little 5 thing if you are so interested in that concept instead. And I picked up The Night Country finally in August as well to finally finish this series. I definitely liked this less upon reread than I did when I initially read it back in 2018, but it's still a decent story. Not my favorite series by any means, not my favorite book by any means. I definitely actually preferred The Night Country, the second one, better in this duology, which is rare, I feel like, but I actually did like that one better, because this one just still, all the issues that I had with it back in 2018, I still felt nowadays, but maybe even at a stronger level. So I didn't really like, the plot. There's a lot of plot holes, the characters, there's a lot of just a lack of character development and growth, to be honest, which is very frustrating. And it's very rushed in the end, which I didn't like. I did reread this just to be able to kind of move on in the series and finish the series. So that's everything that I read in July. That was a lot. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!